Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another Community Connections show. I'm super excited to have my long-term friend. I've not seen her forever, but you know her, you see her everywhere. I can't even describe her. Speaker, author, comedian, and so much more. Author, I said. My old friend, Karith Foster, Karith the Mosquito Killer Foster. How are you doing today? I told you.
Skills, right? I got skills.
Folks, I just gotta. She's a comic at heart, and literally was showing me her new book and killed a mosquito with it before we went on air. You can't make that stuff up. She's that talented. Yeah. I mean, that's what a book's for. If you don't read it.
I don't mean to brag, I'm just that talented. When you got skills.
You do. I mean, you just showed me a new one. I've actually never seen anybody do that before, but you killed that sucker. So good. I got a plenty of them here. If you want to, I'll buy some books and kill them myself. But Karith, for people that don't know you and just, you do so many things, but just tell them some about your background and some of the things you do and believe in, so we can kind of open the show up.
Sure. So I jokingly say I'm a recovered journalist. That's what I went to school for. I got my degree in. I got into it, and my first really big job out of college was at The View, because I thought, who better to learn from than Barbara Walters, And I was there for 2 years, but it quickly became, I don't know if you're familiar with the movie, because it's a bit of a chick flick, but The Devil Wears Prada.
I got 3 daughters, so
you got girls, so
right, yeah.
Yeah. So, but there's a line in there, and it's the main character, and she's like, 1 million girls would kill for this job. Why am I miserable? And that was what was happening to me at The View. I just wasn't living my soul's purpose. But while I was at The View, there are no accidents. I met someone. We shared studio space at the time with the soap opera All My Children. And I met a young woman who asked me to watch her do a set in the ladies' room. And I always tell people, if anybody wants you to watch them do anything in the New York City bathroom, you run. You don't walk. You hightail it out of there. But she proceeds to do like 6-7 minutes of stand-up comedy. I'm like, where did you learn to do that? And she's like, I signed up for a class. I'm like, you think I could? She goes, actually, you might be able to take my place because I can't take the class anymore. So for my birthday, for my 21st or 2nd birthday, I treated myself to a stand-up comedy class.
Wow, I did not know that.
As they say, is history. Yeah, because I needed that creative outlet that I wasn't having, even in television production, because it was, the grind work. And while I was, then I left The View. I started working in corporate America because I still had rent to pay. Right. You don't just get a sitcom overnight in comedy. Right. I know seems like it. And so I started working in HR, and I worked in HR for almost 10 years at Estee Lauder, the corporate headquarters in New York, but pursuing stand-up the whole time. And actually what ended up happening was I was about to start a production company when I got a call. This was 2007, saying, hey, Karith, you interested in a radio TV opportunity? And any comic worth their salt was like, yes.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, by the way, it's with Don Imus.
Oh,
now,
wow.
This was right after, because it happened in April. I got the call in September. April 2007 was the infamous Imus in the Morning, the first shock jock before Howard Stern. Nappygate is how I refer to it.
Okay.
Because it was when he called the Rutgers women's basketball team nappy-headed hoes, which, as you can imagine, didn't go over so well.
Right.
Even in 2007. And appropriately so. He thrust these innocent young women into a spotlight they didn't ask for. His biggest crime to me was, A, it wasn't funny, but B, it was just completely insensitive. But, as the free speech advocate that I am, and the comedian, like, I understand when you're riffing, you're trying to make a joke, you're just popping stuff off, things don't come out the way necessarily that you meant it. But for me, it was, he just didn't even know what he was saying. Like, he was this literally 118-year-old white guy trying to be hip and cool, and it wasn't. It was the perfect combination of the wrong thing to say and a slow news day. And, it was like, it spread like wildfire. And so when he did have the opportunity to come back on the air, somebody in his camp, I don't know if it was him who was smart enough to think of it, or somebody else said, you need to really diversify your staff. So with the promise of having a national dialogue about race, I was brought into the fold. And for me, it was the perfect job. I mean, I was on the air. I got to talk news and politics and be funny. But unfortunately, after about a year, it took a bit of a turn. And I talk about this in my TEDx talk. And I share about how eventually he wanted me to be the voice he couldn't be. And so it led to some pretty intense tension And ultimately I left after 2 of the 3 years of my contract. But, that time served me well in the sense that after I recovered from the emotional trauma of it, because he was a very damaged person, it did set me on a path of wanting to make the world a better place and wanting to bring people together in a way that we hadn't been shown. And that's actually at the crux of my work now, whether it's going in under the umbrella of diversity and inclusion, but really flipping the switch on how we have that conversation with Inversity, which is the term I've coined.
I like that.
Or even with my book.
So Inversity, when you explain that to people, what do you tell me how that
Sure.
how you say it?
So when you think about diversity, right? I mean, even at the root of the word is division and divide. So we're saying, let's talk about diversity and inclusion. It's almost contradictory, right? Let's talk about how different we are. Let's talk about that. Let's focus on that. And then we want everybody to come together. Well, that's not how it works. Because you made everybody focus on how different we are. It's like the law of attraction. You get what you put your energy toward, right? So let's shift the focus from what separates and divides us, right? To what do we have in common? How can we be truly inclusive of one another? But most importantly, introspective, right? Meaning understanding your value, your worth, your connection to humanity. Because if you can see those things in yourself, then you can see them in someone else. So all this D&I work that we've been doing since the 60s, right, has been almost for naught because it's caused more polarization and division because we've been working from the outside in. We need to work from the inside out now.
I love that, Karith. And I mean, you're talking to a guy, I have 2 classes left to get to my dissertation in leadership. And I've been saying for 10 years now, the word unite and untie. Think about this, unite and untie. Same exact letters. You switch 2 letters in the middle. And I'm like, we have a lot more in common than we do differences. So you just resonated with me because I've been passionate about this well before 2020. I mean, for many years. And then people are like, that's a really good spot on. I'm like, I didn't think of it during the pandemic. I've been talking about it. People are listening more now.
Exactly. And, my concern is that, of course, since everyone witnessed the George Floyd murder, in the rise of Black Lives Matter and, all of these, like the social justice that certainly needs to be out there. But my concern is that it's going to cause a counter reaction and more division. And the more that we want to see each other as the other, the more we're just going to get more trauma and drama and pain. And we can't continue to go down that path because it's not one that's working. It's not one that's solving any problems. And there are a lot of people out there who are making a pretty penny going in as a D&I specialist, being hired as a chief diversity officer, doing all of these things who really are perpetuating the problem and not helping.
Well, let me just tell you, I'm going to give you iron sharpens iron. I love that Inversity as a marketing guy. I mean, I don't mean it as a gimmicky way. I mean, it's so spot on. And what I'm thinking about as you're saying it, you're right. I mean, we're bringing a diversity person to show our differences so we can work towards getting together versus why don't we start where we're alike? We all bleed and sweat and drink and eat and sleep. And, when we start there, we're probably about 75% there, and
Yeah.
I love that.
So I lecture at Stanford. I've been there, 7 years in a row now for a course in reputation management. And I share about the Imus situation, saving his reputation than having to save mine. But I was brought in this past year to be a luminary, an expert, a visiting expert for the Knight Hennessy Scholars Program. And the Knight Hennessy Scholars Program at Stanford is like the equivalent of Rhodes Scholars at Oxford, which is where we met.
That's right.
And so one of the things that they had me do was come in and talk about leadership, and that was wonderful, and I was so honored to do that. But they had all sorts of experts. They had this one guy who was there, this scientist, this biologist, talking about CRISPR, right, which can be kind of controversial. Talking about DNA and moving things, and the RNA and all that stuff. But what I stayed and I listened to him speak because I was fascinated, because that's just not my world. And I said, listen, I do a lot of work in the D&I realm. I said, tell me, how differently are we as human beings? Like, percentage-wise, like it's based on our ethnicity, it's based on our blood type. Like, what is it that separates us? And he goes, Karith, we're honest to goodness, 99.999999986% the same.
How about that?
We are fighting over the 4/10,000ths or 100,000ths of a percentage. Yeah, yeah, we come in different packages, but that's like it. That's it. It's like wrapping paper. We just have different coverings.
Yeah, Karith, it's like everything right now is an issue. Someone wants to argue. I was taking one of my kids to a soccer tournament. Mask, no mask, school, no school, Republican, Democrat. What I mean, and at a certain point, you're like, guys, okay, we're all gonna have our individual whatever, but at the core, you investing, because you were talking about perfect or happy. It's like, do you want to live a happy life, or do you want to post to be that person on Facebook constantly just causing? You know what I mean? There's like trollers. They just go in, and I have 2 magazines in Atlanta, Karith. One of them has a blue masthead because that's my favorite color. That's how I started it. Started one a couple years later with green because that was where a local high school had it. Sure enough, about 5 months ago, in the midst of this, we had posted something all positive, very positive, and it was somebody wrote on a Facebook thing like, "What does blue and green represent? Is that some kind of statement?" And I said, well, let me just break that down for you. Blue's this, green. Oh, okay. Well, but it's like they're looking for something.
Oh yeah,
and I'm
they're
going,
looking for it. They're looking for it.
Why are you putting your time into that? And that's what I'm passionate about. Is like, we have a limited amount of time.
What's worse is when people play into it, like Uno, right? Mattel. Did you see that like after the election, Mattel changed the red and blue cards to green and purple?
No, I mean,
yellow and orange and purple.
I did not see
that. So you
that.
can get an Uno version called like the non-political version. First of all, what's political about Uno? Nothing. It's friggin' numbers and draw fours and reverse and skip use, right? And they change the colors because they're placating to the people who are like, who the people who cannot take a joke, like in the documentary I was in 2 documentaries about free speech and humor and being able to.
Is that the one we all what's that? We all take a joke or
can we take a joke, which came out in 2016, and then I was recently one called No Safe Spaces with Adam Carolla and Dennis Prager.
I guess my question is, here's where I'm careful with what you do. This is my question. Is it like, it's almost like no matter if I make a joke about anything, I mean, anything, it's like that comes across as wrong to this. I'm like, I'm just kidding. I'm trying to make you laugh. And, I'm not talking about anything. I'm just talking about just a regular banter conversation.
I know. With nothing like, racial tension.
Right. And people like, you know me as a person. I know you as, it's like, well, why when did if we can't laugh, like your book, you're not going to be a happy person.
Exactly. You have to be able to laugh at yourself and, find the humor in things. Like especially right now with, in the middle of coronavirus, and we don't know how long this is going to last and when we're going to get back to normal, if there is going to be normal again. But like, just out of self-preservation, like you need humor, like it's cathartic, it's healing. And to be on the offense all the time, like, isn't that exhausting?
It's exhausting.
Isn't that always like looking for something to be offended about all the time? Isn't it? And yes, of course there are things to consider. And I'm not saying just like, go out and say whatever you want under the umbrella of free speech. Like, listen, you can understand there are consequences for sure. But, we also have to pay attention to what is that person's intent? Were they saying that because they're trying to be hurtful? Were they saying that because they were trying to like relieve the tension in the space?
Right.
And I get it, so in the work that I do, especially, so I have a program called Stereotyped 101 and another program called the Inversity Solutions that I take to colleges and universities as well as corporations. And I feel like what really sets me apart is I don't go in to shame anybody or make anybody feel guilty about how they were born or who they were, because none of us can help that. What we do need to do is realize that we're in the same boat, but we also have to learn how to communicate effectively. We're not really taught that. You can get a degree in communications and still not know how to effectively like have civil discourse happening in your realm.
Yes, it's so I had the guy I was telling you earlier with from the Covey organization, but in that book, can we if we're going to agree, what is it? Agree to disagree agreeably. We may not agree on the same thing, but we still can respect the person and not tear them down and go call. And all I'm saying is just like I agree with what you're doing is so important. I'm thinking of high college people I know to connect. you with. This is,
Please, please.
you know, because there's people that need to hear this, especially younger people. You know, you and I are so young still, but it's hard to believe I have almost a 21-year-old because I'm only like 30, and that's what's crazy.
I know, it's amazing. You look incredible.
Oh no, you do. No, I'm just kidding. Well, I'm in here in my dark studio. You know me. I have to stand up, but we'll talk about your book in a second. But yeah, I mean, younger people in particular, I've been telling them, I'm like, you know, guys, I've been saying this for 8 or 10 years, but still, the people are post things that they don't mean, or it's really not who they are, but then they're screenshot and they're shared around the world. And you know, everything I say, you say, you know, if we were to put it out, they could dissect this interview and be like, oh well, he wants to create, he wants to be funny. I'm like, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to lighten the mood, you know. But let's talk about your book, your newest book, which I know writing a book is a labor of love. Trust me.
It
So
is.
you can be, was it? You can be
You
perfect
can
or
be
happy.
perfect or you can be happy.
Also, there it is. Is that the one with the mosquito?
Yes, the
Okay,
mosquito was on the
yes.
back. I think
Somebody,
I got him. That's with the smiley face messed up.
we're gonna find somebody. We're gonna get a lucky list. We're gonna find him the mosquito version, and I'm gonna get it shipped to him. That's what we're gonna do. But yeah, tell us about that. How you thought of that book idea and what it's all about.
So, you know, the idea for the book came, well, first of all, it was something that somebody said to me. One of my very dear friends. I was a new mom. And as you know, if you can remember as far back as 21 years ago, being a new parent, you know nothing. Like, it doesn't matter how many books you've read, how many, you know, words of wisdom people have given you, you're still, this is new for you. So you're experiencing it for the first time and you're trying to do everything right. And because this is the most precious thing in your life. And you know, we had a rough go in the very beginning. She was a lot smaller than we anticipated, than the doctors had even thought she'd be. She's only 4 pounds, 10 ounces. She was losing even more weight because she wasn't latching properly to nurse. And we didn't realize that until we finally, after several days, got her to the midwife, and voila, she wasn't eating. She was literally dying. So I'm beating myself up like nobody else can beat themselves up. And my girlfriend said, listen, Karith, you can be perfect or you can be happy. The choice is yours. And while, you know, the skies should have opened up, the heavens should have shown their bright light on me, the chorus of angels should have sung, you know, that didn't happen. But what did happen is that, oh, I thank you for saying those nice words. I feel better. But it did stick in the back of my head. And I thought about it for years. And the more I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, you can be perfect or you can be happy. And there's no such thing as perfect. Yet I've been trying most of my life to be perfect, the perfect daughter, the perfect friend, the perfect girlfriend, the perfect intern, the perfect employee. And how much of that, what does that cost me? You know, it's cost me peace of mind, confidence.
It's draining.
It's draining.
I mean,
trying to be something that doesn't even exist.
I mean, you're chasing something that's trying to make everybody happy. So, you know, and I mean, I just want to interject there because there's a lot of people with our type of drive that they're trying to, their intentions are, but you're going to fail ultimately because you can't please everybody. No matter how hard you try, somebody's going to say, I'm getting the short end of the stick.
That's exactly right.
And people really don't want perfect people. You said, I think we said before we went on air, I mean, you know, if everything's perfect about you, like, well, your life must be, I mean, there is no perfect, but the seemingly perfect. They want transparent and authentic, right?
Authentic, exactly. And that's, you know, and here's the thing, not that doesn't mean they want somebody who's like, oh yeah, this horrible thing is happening in my life, and I'm going through this all the time, and I can't lose weight, and I hate my spouse, and I, like, that's a bit, that's not too authentic, but that's also like Debbie Downer.
Like,
But I think, you know, so in the book, what I say is, you know, how to get there to perfect or happy is, I call it getting back to the basics, right? And the basics is an acronym, and each of those letters has about 3 or 4 categories that I apply to those letters. So like the B stands for be kind, you know, not just to other people, but to yourself. Like, this is really great book. It's worldwide bestseller, has a line in it that most of us know, love your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
But how many people are really loving themselves? And this is what I talk about when I say it feeds back into the whole idea of Inversity, and how, you know, if we really want to curb this problem, we have to start from the inside out. We have to start with ourselves. Well, if we're not respecting ourselves or thinking that we're worthy, then how could you possibly see someone else as worthy? Regardless of their politics or their skin color or their gender or sexual identity. Like, you know, when you got yourself together, you're okay with everybody else. And that doesn't mean you have to agree with them, because how boring would life be?
Right.
We all thought the same way. I mean, that's crazy.
Uh, yeah, and I mean, and I think that's, you know, I really think you got a lot of people. This is my take that want to look, whether it's on Instagram, or whatever, the perfect picture, the perfect thing. But and I watch when I'm at the beach and watch younger people. You know, they're doing it over and over and over. And first of all, that's not real. And then it's been, you know, color corrected and whatever. But I don't
Mm-hmm.
know that those people are happy with themselves. They're trying to project an image to really say, hey, look at my life, it's much better. I mean, that's really the core, you know, which doesn't do anything about bringing us all up as humans.
No, like, you know, so I actually talk about this in the book. And I talk about, like, my husband and I jokingly call it Facebook, fake book,
Fake book, yeah.
and Instagram, Insta scam. Because you're literally seeing like a snapshot of someone's life that it's just like you said, they angled it the right way. They made sure 2 feet to the right of them could be literally a dumpster fire.
I know.
And they are like, look at me and my, like, you know, they did the angle so it looks like their waist is 3 inches smaller. And it's like, and we look at it like, oh, wow, their life must be so amazing. What am I doing wrong? Oh, I gotta
Exactly.
get myself together. Like, oh, my life is terrible. And, you know, my husband didn't wish me the happy anniversary of 15 years. And we just had a fight about, and guess what? They just talked about getting a divorce 2 weeks ago. So, you know what I
Exactly.
mean? Like,
Okay, well, let me tell you something, Karith. So my radio show, we go and we do Marketing Matters, and if you were in Atlanta, I'd bring you in. But listen to this true story. This guy was on. He was talking about it being an Iron Man. He's a friend of mine. I've since pivoted in terms of doing stuff for myself. But I said, he was like, you walk down, I got this full exercise room and I've got it all there. And they're like, so tell me, Ryan, they were like, what's your part? What have you done during the quarantine? I'm like, and I've been using it as a hanger for my dry cleaning every day. I walk right past it. And they all started dying laughing. But it was the whole idea is, the guys were like poking fun at yourself and whatever. That's what people want. Doesn't it? And I'm working on things, but you're right. I mean, when it's so perfect and it's so color corrected and it's, yes, the true story behind the scenes, exactly. Our marriage is not what we're projecting to be and whatever. That's real. That's real life that we're all going through,
it
and
is
these
real
unprecedented.
life.
And when they hear people like you and me and other people say it, they're like, oh, well, I thought their life was like, I mean, Karith's on national shows and stuff. And I'm like, yeah,
Oh,
she's a real person with
yeah. Oh,
real
yeah.
issues. I'm a real
Oh,
person
yeah.
right?
This is what I say. The grass, they say the grass is always greener on the other side. No, I say the grass is greener when you water your own lawn.
Amen. I love that. Because, you could say, hey, so-and-so's spouse does X. I'm like, yeah, but so-and-so's spouse doesn't have this. And Laura and I now, my wife, we've been getting down near almost 23, 24 years of marriage. And you kind of go, I mean, she's my best friend, whatever. And you go, you know what? If you're looking out there for something better, genuinely, you're upset with something in yourself.
Absolutely.
And that's what you're saying in
Exactly.
your book, right? I mean, you're searching for something.
Exactly.
All right. So,
Nobody else, and that's another thing about, so if I could explain perfect or
yeah,
happy,
please.
right? So you can be perfect, right? Which is a fallacy because it doesn't exist. Or you can be happy, which is a choice. And everybody has a choice to be happy. And it is a choice. Now, the caveat is that it's not a constant. And that's okay. We're not supposed to be on all the time or happy all the time. And life isn't supposed to be amazing all the time. First of all, how would you know if it was good if you didn't have any lows? I like to the equivocal is like watching a heart monitor, right? Or the EKG. You get the highs, you get the lows, you get the good times, you get the down times. The only time you are in trouble with life, literally and figuratively, is when you have that straight line.
Right. Right. I love that. I mean, and Karith, having you say this for people, and we say, hey, we don't have all the answers, but I love it's Inversity. I love that. I mean, I'm going to borrow that to share that my friend has done that because I had not heard the term, and it is spot on. I mean, it is spot on, and this is what this country needs. All these things going on are the perfect storm for change in a positive direction if we all come together.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely. And
you
it's
know,
possible.
and people like yourself, people, what I'm trying to do is saying, look, quit, quit focusing on the two things that you don't agree with. Put those aside, accept people for who they are, love them first, love on yourself, not in a way of taking pictures, but quit trying to, that's why I love your book. Quit trying to be who you're not,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you can't win that game.
No. You will exhaust yourself, you will drain yourself, you will lose opportunities. You know, the terminology I use is perfection paralysis. You know, trying to do something so perfect, and then guess what? It either never gets done, or somebody else did it who's just like, you know what, I gotta get it done, and then they get the promotion, or they get known for it. You know what I mean? Like, it could have taken me 20 years to write this book.
Yep.
But guess what? There's edits in here that are bad. There's a couple of misspelled words.
Yep.
That my editor didn't even catch.
Yep.
But it's out there, and it's changing people's lives, and that's what I wanted. That's what matters. That's what the intent is.
You know, and I love that, Karith, because there's always, like, I remember when I finished my second book, it was like I could have worked on another 6 months, but then I was like, cut the end, I'm done. I mean, and you're right, I got a couple typos and whatever, but it's like, you know what? You could spend the rest of your life writing this book, but that's not going to help people.
No.
So I applaud you. I won't take a lot more of your time, but I would applaud you right now. You're a comedian, you're an author, you're a speaker, you're a leader. I appreciate you coming on the show. Let's try to give you, we got the people. Well, first of all, let's tell them how to get to your book and whatever. Your main website, can that get to all your book and everything?
Absolutely, yeah. So Karith, and if I move out of the way,
there you go.
No,
Almost.
There's not too many Kariths out there. So Karith, Karith.com is my website.
I love the branding.
My email's Karith@Karith.com. I mean, it doesn't get more easy than that. I try to keep it simple, Ryan.
Well, unfortunately, we'll have some people probably forget some part of that, but it's about as simple as you can make it, right? We'll put a note to it.
Put a note to self. Instagram and Twitter as Karith Foster. Now my Facebook page is Foster Karith, because I have a personal page and then a public page. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk she kind of close out, because that's how people can reach you. Your book also is on Amazon and all those other places, right? Yeah. Uh-huh. And I'm going to get one because I want to read it. What's the word I want to say? Oh, so we got those people, we got them out there. They've listened to what we've said a little bit. As you kind of close them out, you got these people right now that are depressed. They feel isolated. They're lonely. They're concerned. They're worried. These are all real feelings. I mean, you and I don't have some playbook of how this is going to play out. We know we're human beings. What do you say to them to make them smile and say, hey, look, you can make a choice today to try to enjoy wherever you are. What do you say to those people?
Well, just understand that you're not in this by yourself. Even if you literally are living alone, there are millions and millions of people, and everybody's got something. We all do. And it's not that you don't address it, because of course you have to. You can't pretend. But it's also like the negative stuff doesn't have to be the focus all of the time. And I think, honestly, finding those little things to be grateful for, that's such a powerful exercise. And when I say grateful for, I mean, like, not just like, oh, I have a roof over my head, but like, I have clean water. Mm-hmm. I can read. I have access to, you know what I mean? That sets you apart from like a good 65 to 70% of the rest of the world.
Yeah. I would say,
and we don't think like that.
I was in being as transparent a couple months ago, I was in a little, funk, and Laura said to me, she's like, Ryan, literally what you're upset about, 99% of the world would be loving to have. You know what? You need the truth spoken back to you, and I'm out and I'm like, you're right. I'm focused on the stuff that is so insignificant in the overall scheme. Yeah. We have so much, all of us, speaking primarily to our American audience, we have so much to be thankful for. Yeah. We really do.
My husband says that depression is a luxury that only like people who are advantaged get to have. And I get that. And my mom years ago, she did a lot of work with our church and the food pantry and Habitat for Humanity. And she had a couple families. One of the families, so when a Habitat for Humanity family gets accepted, they have to put a certain number of hours in to work on the house as well, like, sweat equity. So it's not just money. So it's like, they're building their own home as well. And she had two families, and one was an American family and one was an African family. And the African family, they had like 4 or 5 kids, and like literally had come from nothing. And in fact, the husband had been one of the Lost Boys. And I don't know if that reference means anything to anybody, but the Lost Boys was what they called the children who were children of the genocide in Rwanda. And these boys were forced to fight. They were forced to kill. And when they escaped, these are orphans with nothing. And they had to literally go through like Africa, where there were frigging tigers, not tigers, those are Asia, but lions and crocodile, like things that would kill you. I mean, they saw their friends killed by wildlife. And this man was like one of the happiest men in the world.
Yeah.
And he put his time and his energy into making this home for his family. And the American family, like, half showed up.
Yeah.
You know?
But yet, Karith, and we got a couple minutes left. I was, when I was out, one of my last speeches I gave was in Vegas in probably late February before all this stuff started. But I would say of all the Uber drivers that I ever had out there, in particular, other big cities, many of them came from overseas. They were just so thankful to have that job. And,
Yeah.
and I'm over there, worried about these, am I going to be there early enough and doing this and that? And so I say all that to say, all of us are human. But if we can be a little more, show that gratitude of the simplest things, it really does change your mindset.
Absolutely. Perspective.
Well, my friend, we could talk forever. It's so good catching up with you. So good catching up with you. And to believe we're still only 25, right? I mean, yeah, we just froze time. And then, that's how Zen works, is magic. So magic like that. But yeah, so everybody, I'm going to remind them again, is this is Karith Foster, author, speaker, consultant, leader, comedian, and I'm talking about Inversity and her new book. I want you to go get her new book, Perfect or Be Perfect.
You can be perfect or you can be happy.
I needed that right there. Yep. And so, and then it's karith.com, correct?
Yep. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, Karith, thanks, my friend, for coming on the show. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you. Love to your family.
Yes, thank you. Folks, you've been listening to another Community Connections. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.